$800,000 realistically?
So this is what I was
true?
telling the guy before. This is why they say that. He had 800 pounds real on the bar, and then we put band tension. There's bands that we put on the bar. The whole reason we put bands on the bar is so it's attacking the nervous system and trying to increase that rate of force development that we were talking about earlier, okay? The bands almost like trigger the brain. I got to drive through a force from the ground a little bit more explosively. Anyway, long story short, the band tension also adds weight to the bar. So at the top of the movement, the bands obviously it gets harder as it goes up. The bands, so yeah, at the top, and we can measure how much band tension is on there. It was close to 950 pounds when those two were doing it there at the end of the summer. So that's what they're talking about.
Is that normal to see something like that?
Absolutely not. J.C. Latham's the only other one that we've had to come close to that. J.C. Latham was a freak of nature too. But those two guys are special. They're physically special. But as I've said before, and I told these guys, and I hope you guys put it out there, unless you do it on a football field, it doesn't matter. And that's been the charge to them. This has got to transfer to the field, play after play, rep after rep, and you got to be able to replicate it. And that's been the number one thing we've tried to hammer on, and that's the important part, because it's in there. It's in there. God bless them, and they have a great work ethic, and they're good dudes. But you got to be able to do it. You got to produce on the field and show it on the football field. That's the thing. With the mentality too.
What have you seen out of James Smith this offseason?
James had a great, phenomenal offseason, A+. If I was like grading our roster from off-season production, James Smith would be in the top 5. And not even so much. The physical numbers certainly have been great. He's body composition. He's put on 9 pounds of lean mass. But it's outside. It's the mentality, the consistency, the maturity that he's kind of, and just the intentionality he's come with the training. I couldn't be more happy with where he's at right now, mentality-wise, not just physical, but mentality-wise. And I really hope this kid plays like what I just saw from January to July. I hope he plays that way. And I just told him that before we started practice.
Mentality of the team. Tell me about this offseason, what you saw, what's different.
Yeah, I think the offseason, these guys, they got challenged. They got challenged in a lot of ways, but they were challenged on a day-to-day basis to where, things that happened last year that we weren't okay with, that we don't sleep well with, the only way to change that is not by words, it's by action. Consistent action. We always talk about the standard around here. Well, you got to be held accountable to that standard, and you got to be okay when you are being held accountable to the standard, and you got to be coachable, and you got to be able to take it, and you got to be able to walk in those shoes and deal with tough stuff and deal with tough conversations, and step back in the mirror and have a little self-reflection. And we were pretty aggressive in that, and there were confrontations, many of them, and some of those were much needed, and I think some of those made us better. And the confrontation between coaches and players and players and players, and teammate to teammate. Well, the best part, there was two good indicators that told me where we're at. We basically start the off season. This is how we're going to do things. If you don't want to be here, leave. And nobody left. But the other part was the teammate to teammate, confrontations that happened, trying to hold guys to the standard. It was how those guys took those conversations and didn't take them personal, didn't come combative with it, that they actually took it to heart and made changes. So I said before, action's what's actually going to make anything better. It's not just words. So that's probably where I was most happy with, because we told the guys, leadership builds culture, and then culture drives behavior, and ultimately behavior produces the results. And if you want elite results, you better have elite leadership, and it better be every day. So I think that what I just said right there is where we took the biggest step in. All the numbers outside, all the numbers that you hear, that's what we took the biggest step in.
I think so.
I know coaches don't like to do comparisons, but when you look at physically shape, this team passes a lot of eye tests.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you got a lot of special physical specimens. I mean, it's a great job in recruiting, but our you look at a high performance model, it's our strength and conditioning, our sports medicine, our nutrition staffs. They're all very talented, got a lot of really good people in them, and they work their butts off day-to-day basis. A lot of people don't know them, don't talk about them, but these people are extremely, extremely talented. And our players, being willing to learn and absorb that and work their butts off. Because to come here to Alabama, you got to work hard, and it's a non-negotiable. That is the standard, and this has been the most coachable group that I've had in a little while, and the charge to them is, can they keep it there? But yeah, you're right. The physical, there's a lot of special, and I could go through them over and over. We talk about Proctor, we talk about J-Rob, But you talk about, our center, Parker Brelsford, 286 pounds. Kid can move like a linebacker, and he bench presses 500 pounds. I mean, and there's guys behind him that are also on their way. And you got guys on defense, the same thing. All you got to do is look at our DB room. Or you look through our DB room, you don't even have to see them move or anything. You just go look through there, and you talk about elite physical talent. They're everywhere.
I want to ask you about recruiting, and when you look at the system, the vibe in this building. We interviewed a bunch of recruits, and they kept talking about different was out of Alabama, talking to the players, talking to the coaches. Do you see that as a coach?
Yeah, for sure. I think our role in recruiting is much about the player development part, how you're going to develop them as an athlete, and how you're going to maximize genetic potential. So, and our role in this is it's an education piece to the parents and the player. And we're fortunate here that the administration has invested a lot of money to the facilities here, and we got a lot of really cool things, and a lot of people have, and we're able to do things that honestly some people don't have the staff to do it or the technology. So you see a very receptive, parents, the recruiting parents, and the recruits themselves. You see it's very receptive and very positive reaction, almost 100% of the time, to be honest with you. And but I think once they get in here and see it, it's like, oh wow, it opens up another part of their whole thought process and what development should look like.
You may have to help me work through this question, but when you look at depth, how does that make your job harder in a camp when you know that you got to get game ready, but you've also got to protect the injuries?
Yeah, I think it all has to come down to volume control and look, there's the first part of training camp that's going to be hard, and it needs to be hard, and it need to be. We talked about tissue resilience and resiliency and almost callous in the body to be able to handle the season. All that is what we do in the off season, but then it becomes playing time to play football, where you're playing football 2.5 hours, almost 3 hours of practice. You can't replicate that in the weight room. You got to go play. So that the first part of training camp, you got to go hard in the body. You got to get out there and beat on each other, and you got to go do some hard work. You can't be afraid to push guys. Okay, but in the back part of that, you do. That's why we have the GPS, the catapult, that tracks, player load, the high explosive yardage, and their overall workload, all that stuff. There's many categories that we'll look at, and you'll go manage guys from here to there. But I'll tell you what, the way our coaches set up practice and the way they rotate players and as many guys that get reps in practice, it makes it a little easier because. You don't see a whole lot. Like we were going over data this morning, you don't see a whole lot of guys that are overwhelmed, and you got to talk to the player too, physically where they're at. And our guys right now, we're sitting in a weekend, and I don't know how many practices we've had yet, but they feel great. They feel fresh, and they're out there playing fast yesterday, being physical. We had 2 physical days in a row. But there's a sports science piece where you got to keep on top of it, but there's another piece where they got to grind. They got to grind through stuff. They got to grind through hard stuff.
How rewarding is it though when you look at the strength conditioning numbers, when you're running the data, as you said, and it go to a number and you're just like, whoa, wow, this is really impressive?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of cool. It's cool for us as a staff, but also the player, because we post everything. Whatever happens in the weight room from a power perspective, there's a leaderboard. They're ranked by position. It's up on the live screens as we're lifting, and it's up day to day on the TV screens through passing periods when they're going through the building. They know they'll look at it, and so there's an accountability piece to it for sure. But it is really cool when you see a guy PR, and our guys around here will talk about power numbers. We rarely talk about pounds on the bar. It's all power numbers. So when they get a power PR, our guys are pretty jacked, and usually the whole room will know because they see it on the screen, and they can tell when a guy's PR and when they. So it is fun. It is cool, and it's they get to see a product of their hard work and consistency more than anything.
Who are the strongest guys on the team on that leaderboard?
I mean, if you were going pound for pound, which is probably the fair way to do it, pound for pound, Quay, Russaw is definitely one. And look, J-Rob and Proctor, no matter pound for pound or nothing, they're just strong human beings, and Parker too. But Quay's definitely would be up there. Jan Miller would be up there, no doubt about it. Some of our DBs are pretty damn impressive too. But those guys are probably the first ones to come off top on. Tim Keenan's strong. Tim Keenan, really strong kid.
Some of the newcomers that really impressed you just coming into the weight room?
In terms of work ethic in the weight room?
Yeah.
I've been impressed in terms of the offseason. Jeremiah Beeman has done a good job. We talked about James Smith earlier. He's not necessarily a newcomer, but he's still a younger type guy. He's been phenomenal. The new group of freshmen that we've had just come in with Jackson and Mike and those guys and Micah, they're hardworking dudes. They're hardworking guys, and they put a lot of effort into it, and you can tell they care about it. You know, DJ Lee, special. DJ Lee's special from the physical perspective. Elite. He absolutely elite. Young linebackers we have, a QB Reese and those guys over there at Abdul and Caden. Those guys work their butt off. Duke Johnson works his butt off. Duke Johnson's come a long way, adding lean mats on his body. But I can go on and on with these dudes. Like, you know, you're talking about JJ, Justin Jefferson, 22-mile-an-hour linebacker. You don't see that every day. Weighs 226 pounds. Like, JJ can run with DBs, you know. So there's a lot of cool things we get to see on a day-to-day basis that happen. And like you said, the numbers-wise, you're like, wow, yeah, that's not normal.
You said Rico was the fastest, I believe, 23.5
Yeah.
miles. Is there
Rico actually hit 23.4, and he hit it multiple times this summer. Yeah. We don't count it. Unless they hit it multiple times, we don't count it. Yeah.
Who else is kind of in that area of the fastest?
We've had a couple other guys, you know, Ryan and Rico, or Ryan and last year, both around 23 miles an hour. You know, Isaiah and Germ. Those guys are little over 22 miles an hour. You know, all those DBs. I mean, you can go through all those DBs, 22 miles an hour guys. Damani, DJ, all those dudes over there. Cam. There's Xavier. There's a pretty special group.
So what is the point of emphasis of speed? Because I know Dr. Ray, I read some of his peer-reviewed journals. He obviously was a lot of speed. You still have a lot of that implanted into the program?
Well, we do. Well, our system in general, which I've had all the way back to 2015 when I was in IMG, we have a part of our every lower body workout we do is called Speed Focus. Okay, and I could get long-winded and there could be a lot of depth into it, but long story short, we EMG our guys when they're sprinting. Okay, and we EMG them when they're sprinting, we can tell muscle activation coordination patterns we're looking at. Okay, quad to hamstring, the sequencing of the two when they get to top speed. It tells us a lot of things. It tells us how much speed they got left in their body, but it also tells us soft tissue injury risk, okay? And from that, we'll tag them. They got certain tags that they'll get, okay, which means there's specific exercises they'll do to fix their issue. Individualized. It's very individualized in the way we do our lower body work here, okay? Which is cool. Why they guys love it. They love it. They're bought into it because they know they're doing things to help fix their body. But over time, in that speed focus that we're talking about, they'll be doing things, those exercises, specific exercises, to help fix those issues. And some of that is sprinting. We got 1080 sprints, which is basically like electronic sled that we use. We got the 1080 series quantums and the synchros you see right in the room. You're able to give specific stimuluses for the nervous system to attack whatever issues they do have. There's many of them. There's about 16 things we'll take them through from ground up to try to find deficiencies, flaws, weaknesses, issues that they have. And then we go to work. We individualize and go to work, and then you got to make adjustments. Like we've seen the nervous system every about 4 or 5 weeks, so it'll start making changes. Then you got to stay on top of it. And then you got to make adjustments volume-wise and exercises and all that thing. That's why you got to have a really good staff, and you got to have an analytical staff that will spend time into the data and be able to be ready to make the adjustments. And we've been fortunate here. We got a lot of guys who've been staff-wise, have a lot of guys who've been in the system, know the adjustments, know how to make them quick, and that's part of the magic.
James Smith mentioned he felt like he really needed to mature kind of coming into this off season. How have you seen that just day to day from him?
He absolutely did, and that's what I was talking to somebody about earlier. James Smith, if I were to sit here and say the top 5, guys that took a step forward on our team, James Smith is in that top 5, no question about it. It's been phenomenal to see the growth of him, consistency, the toughness, the overall intentionality of his mindset, and just the look in his eye when he comes in our room every day. Like, especially this summer. I mean, he was just attacking every single day. And I told somebody earlier, I hope James Smith plays this season like what I've seen from January to July. Because if he does, it's going to be very, very special. The dude is, he's all in. And he's obviously physically talented. The kid's a physical anomaly in terms of athleticism for his size. So I hope what I've seen every day we see on Saturdays here soon.
How's his attitude this offseason been different than what you saw in the past?
Just more consistency, intentionality, and consistency. I think, like all freshmen that come in here, you get overwhelmed about how hard it is on a day-to-day basis, and sometimes you're not in here on the right mindset, and maybe you're not wired in like you need to be, and you got to get corrected. That's what we haven't seen this past year, and it's been good.
Do you think there was just like one wake-up call moment for him coming in?
Sometimes, man, you see this. Sometimes these kids get in here, they're 18 years old, and all this gets thrown on them, and they get through the first season, and they're just like, okay, this is what it takes. That's what I want. And you just see the light bulb go off, and I think that's what happened. And the kid is, he loves football. The kid loves football. He loves the process. he's competitive. He's competitive. The numbers you track in our room, he's relentless about looking at them, and it's important to him. And it definitely drives intent.